Judge Faulkner, thank you for joining us. We're in the Channel 7 studio in Spartanburg. Can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
Sure, thank you for having me. I'm Judge Debora Faulkner. I'm the probate judge for Greenville County. I am originally from Waterloo, South Carolina, that's in Lawrence County, and I was born and raised there. From there, I went to the University of South Carolina in undergraduate school, graduated from there and went straight into the University of South Carolina School of Law, graduated in 1982. My first job was here in Greenville. I worked for the Legal Aid Society here in Greenville, and I worked there for a few years. Then I worked for the South Carolina Attorney General's office as an assistant attorney general. Then I opened my own practice, hung out my shingle. In 1996, the probate judge for Greenville County was Diane Smock. She interviewed potential associate probate judges from the members of the Greenville County Bar. I applied, and she hired me. And I worked for her for 3 years as her associate probate judge. When she decided to retire from being probate judge, I decided to run for her seat. Having worked there for 3 years, I knew the job, and I enjoyed the work, and I was very motivated and inspired to do the work. So I filed to run for that seat as an open seat. I was elected, and I have been the probate judge for Greenville County ever since then, which was 1999.
Now, if you're elected to this new term, are there things that you would like to change, ideas that you'd like to implement?
Yes, I would like to continue building on the foundation that I have over the course of my service, and that is using technology, but not using it so much that we don't have the face-to-face, person-to-person communication that some people prefer over technology. In 2005, my website that I created at my office was awarded a national award for being very helpful and user-friendly. And so that website was the beginning of being able to walk into the 21st century. When I took office in 1999, we had 12 employees. Now I have 34. We had no internet. Now we have internet. And then I implemented it's a system called PAWS, and it's Probate Attorney Web Search. And it has a picture of my dog in it, Paul. And what it does is it allows attorneys to access our case management system. They can pull up wills, they can pull up inventories. An inventory is simply a document with a schedule of all the property in somebody's estate. And if a lawyer is going to meet with a client who might want to go and talk to the lawyer about whether or not a will should be challenged or not, when the client comes to the lawyer's office, the lawyer can already have the will pulled up. They can already tell the client what has been reported as mom's property. They can already tell them who the lawyer is representing their sister. They can already tell them, oh, they've already filed suit to do thus and so. They don't have to send a runner down to my court. They don't have to call our office and use staff time. And it saves us staff time. It saves that client money because the client's billed for all the time that the lawyer has to do research. So it saves the client money. It saves my office staff time, and it's very convenient, and it protects my records. It's a win-win all around. And there's not another one in the state, and it's a free service for lawyers. For people without lawyers, I have a once-a-month class in my courtroom, and I turn the courtroom into a classroom, and we teach folks, anybody can come, we give them a broad overview of the probate process from opening an estate to closing it. We don't give legal advice, but we give them an overview of what they can expect when they open an estate and how the various phases of it and then when it closes. So to build on this in the future, what I'd like to do is do some little YouTube videos and break it down into little modules on the various aspects of estate administration and all the other divisions, so that people who can't come to the class, the face-to-face class, A lot of people work, they can't come to the probate court on a Monday morning at 10. They can watch that video because you may have a parent here, but you may have a child that lives in California, or a child that's in Japan, or a child that's in, Washington State. It won't matter. They can watch those videos, and I can make it so simplified that they will be able to help a parent from far away, because our society, as you know, is very, very mobile. And this keeps them from having to fly to Greenville, from having to make appointments with staff in my office, although they could if they needed to. But these little videos that I could do is another way to get the information and education out into the public domain, which the more educated you are, the more you can do for yourself, the less mistakes you're going to make, and the cheaper things are, and the delay is minimized in getting the estate closed. So I want to do that. Also, I mentioned that we already have e-filing for marriage licenses, and we have secure encrypted email for civil commitment proceedings. Once the Supreme Court approves it, which the Supreme Court has to approve e-filing in the court system for litigation and cases that involve coming to court and having a trial and an order, which is different than marriage licenses and commitments. Once the Supreme Court approves that, and right now they've only approved it as a pilot for Charleston County, then we will have e-filing in Greenville County, which will allow people to e-file their estate forms to us rather than having to send us hard copies. So I'd like to round out all those innovations in my next term.
Can you talk a little bit about what a probate judge does?
This particular office is the only one that is elected by the people of South Carolina. And there are 46 probate judges for each county has a probate judge, and there are 46 counties. The probate court is a creature of statute, which just means the legislature in Columbia passed laws, and it creates what our court is, what our court does. We can't operate outside any of those statutes, and so we have a very specialized jurisdiction. I guess the most common that people realize or may remember that we preside over are estates. When I say estates, usually decedents or deceased persons. And when a deceased person dies in your county, in my county being Greenville County, they file their will in the local probate court, and the will can be contested. The will can be no problems, and it can flow right through and no problem. Or if there is no will, a person with no will, they die, their family has to have the property that the deceased person owned transferred to their names. So the family comes to the court and says, my father died with no will. What do we need to do? And in that case, they file a death certificate, and we go by the law of South Carolina on intestate succession. And that law tells us who will inherit that deceased person's property. So if you don't do a will, that is how your property will be distributed in accordance with that state law. And each state has one of these statutes, and our state has one as well. And as judges, we're required to, first and foremost, follow the law. And when somebody has a will, our obligation is to make sure the intention of the testator, that is the person who made the will, is followed to the letter. So our goal is to make sure that that testator's desires, as far as where the property goes, is honored by the court. So that is the largest division. The other division we have are adult competency hearings. If for some reason an adult, and in South Carolina an adult is 18 years or older, loses capacity to manage their property or manage their own welfare, and it could be for a lot of different reasons. In our senior citizens population, it could be because they have some form of dementia. For younger people, they could have a terrible accident, have a closed head injury. It could be someone with a chronic mental illness that is not being treated well, a chronic chemical dependency such as alcoholism or drug abuse, such that they are really vulnerable themselves because of this addiction or this mental illness, and they can be taken advantage of. So we have this division is called the Protective Proceedings Divisions. And the first step in that is to determine if the person meets the statutory definition of incapacitated. Once we do that, then we appoint a conservator to look out for their money, or we appoint a guardian to look out for their welfare, to make sure they're taking care of themselves. That's another division. We also do trust litigation, power of attorney litigation in that division. We are in charge of the involuntary commitment of people residing or being present in Greenville County and who pose a risk to themselves or a danger to themselves or to the community because they have a mental illness that they aren't receiving treatment for, or if they have a chemical dependency, alcohol or drugs, and they're threatening to themselves or the others. Our court is charged by statute to make sure that that person, if they don't get treatment voluntarily, is taken involuntarily while respecting all of their due process rights, taken and placed in a facility to receive treatment. This is a 24/7, 365 job because these types of things happen outside of normal business hours. So our office is on call 24/7 for that. And once somebody is taken in for an assessment, then we have to honor their due process rights by we appoint them a lawyer, we set a hearing, and we actually physically go out to all the psychiatric facilities and have a hearing at these facilities to determine if they're ready to be released or if they need further treatment. The other division we have are marriage licenses. We issue marriage licenses to applicants, and in South Carolina, you have to be at least 16 years old to get married. And if you're not 18, but you are 16, you still must present parental consent. We also make sure that persons who are filing to get married are competent to get married, so that you don't have someone who is being taken advantage of. If they have dementia and someone decides they want to marry someone because they find out that they maybe have some property or some assets, and they'll say, well, let's take our veil and get married. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen in our office. And we have a way of doing that because I implemented a cross-referencing system. As you recall, I talked to you about having a division for adult competency. And if a person has dementia and they can't manage their property, we cross-reference all the names of that list with the applicants' names for marriage licenses. Because on a marriage license application, it will ask you, have you ever been declared to be incompetent? And if you check yes, you don't get a marriage license. And some people might check no and either not want to tell or not remember. But as a safeguard, we check those to make sure, because we have had people come in our office who have been married and they did not have the capacity to get married and they've been scammed. So we implemented that as a protective measure for our citizens. And finally, our office is like a library in the sense that all of our records are permanent records, and which means they are there for posterity. And if you are going to buy a house and somebody that owns your house has passed away in the chain of title, your real estate attorney will make sure that when that house was in probate, that all of the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And so our office must be made available to the real estate and the commercial real estate businesses to make sure that all that property was properly administered so that marketable title now can be passed to a buyer. And usually they will go back 60 years to make sure that the title has no problems. So our office is very critical to the business community and to private citizens who are wanting to sell property. Well, thank you for the chance to meet you and talk to you about what I do and what the probate courts do in South Carolina. Thank you to those of you who are watching this. I appreciate your attention to this. If you're Greenville County residents, I sure would appreciate your vote on November the 8th. If you would like to learn more about my record of service and my campaign, you can go to DebOraFaulkner.com. That's DeBoraFaulkner.com. And thank you.
Thanks.